The silent arrival. When unknown ships appeared. The mining station Epsilon 7 was nothing special. It floated in the outer edges of the Kepler system, where human workers extracted rare minerals from dead asteroids. Station Commander Marcus Webb had spent 12 years watching the same empty space through the same scratched windows. Today was supposed to be like any other day. It was not. The first sign came from the long-range sensors. Chief Engineer Sarah Okonkwo noticed it during her routine morning check. A distortion in space, something moving through the void where nothing should be. She called Marcus immediately. Within minutes, every screen on the station showed the same impossible sight. Ships were emerging from nowhere, hundreds of them, their designs unlike anything in human records. These were not human vessels. The alien ships moved with strange grace, their hulls shimmering with colors that seemed to shift and change. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Marcus felt his heart pound as he counted them. 50 ships, then 100, then more. They kept coming, surrounding the mining station in a perfect sphere formation. First contact protocol. Marcus activated the emergency beacon. It would take weeks for any military response to reach them. The station had only 37 people on board, mostly engineers and miners. They had no weapons, no defenses, just tools meant for breaking rocks. He gathered his crew in the main observation deck. Fear showed on every face, but no one panicked. They were professionals, used to handling crises in the unforgiving environment of space. Sarah stood beside him, her dark eyes studying the alien formation. She was the smartest person Marcus had ever met, able to solve problems that left others confused. If anyone could figure out what these visitors wanted, it would be her. The station's communication officer, Tom Chen, worked frantically at his console. He was trying every frequency, every protocol humanity had developed for potential first contact scenarios. For 6 hours, the aliens did nothing. They just stayed in formation, their ships perfectly still, watching the small human station. The silence was worse than any threat. Marcus found himself wondering what they were thinking, what they saw when they looked at humanity's tiny outpost. Did they see equals or insects? Warriors or prey? The message that changed everything. Then the aliens spoke. The message came through every speaker on the station at once. The voice was artificial, translated by machines, but the meaning was clear. They called themselves the Zephani Collective. They had been watching humanity for decades, studying Earth's broadcasts, learning about human civilization. They had seen everything, the wars, the peace treaties, the struggles, the triumphs, all of it. The Zephani representative explained their purpose. They were explorers and scientists, seeking knowledge across the galaxy. But they had encountered a problem. A species called the Kryn Dominion was expanding through this region of space, conquering every world they found. The Kryn did not negotiate. They did not show mercy. They simply took what they wanted and destroyed anyone who resisted. The Zephani had fought the Kryn for 2 generations. They had lost millions of their people. Their civilization was dying, slowly ground down by an enemy that seemed unstoppable. They had come to humanity with a warning and a question. The Kryn were heading toward Earth. They would arrive in less than 2 years. The Zephani wanted to know if humanity would stand with them against this threat. Marcus listened to the message 3 times. Each time, the weight of it pressed harder on his chest. He was a mining station commander, not a diplomat. He had no authority to speak for all humanity. But he understood what was being asked. The Zephani were offering an alliance, a chance to prepare for war before the enemy arrived at humanity's doorstep. Humanity's response. Sarah broke the silence first. She pointed out something the others had missed. The Zephani could have simply warned Earth directly. Instead, they came to this remote station first. They were testing humanity, seeing how people would react when faced with impossible news. Marcus realized she was right. Everything about this first contact was a test. He made a decision. He opened a channel to the Zephani ships and spoke clearly. He thanked them for the warning. He told them that humanity would need to verify their claims, to understand the threat fully. But he also made a promise. If the Kryn were truly coming, if they truly meant to destroy Earth, then humanity would fight. Not just for survival, but for the right of every species to exist in peace. The response came quickly. The Zephani appreciated his honesty. They would provide proof of the Kryn threat. They would share their intelligence, their history, everything humanity needed to understand what was coming. But they also issued a warning. The Kryn had destroyed civilizations far more advanced than humanity. The Zephani themselves had superior technology, and they were losing. What chance did humans have? Marcus smiled grimly. He thought about human history, about all the times humanity had faced impossible odds. He thought about people who had stood against tyranny when defeat seemed certain. He thought about the stubborn refusal to surrender that seemed built into human nature. He told the Zephani something that would echo through the galaxy in the months to come. Humanity had a long tradition of doing impossible things. Preparing for the unknown. The mining station became the center of the most important moment in human history. Within days, Earth's government sent their best diplomats, scientists, and military leaders to Epsilon 7. The Zephani kept their word, sharing detailed records of Kryn tactics, weapons, and conquests. The evidence was overwhelming and horrifying. World after world had fallen to the Kryn war machine. But something strange happened as humans studied the Zephani data. Sarah noticed it first. The Kryn always won the same way. They relied on superior firepower and overwhelming force. They expected their enemies to fight traditionally, fleet against fleet, weapon against weapon. When faced with unconventional tactics, the Kryn struggled. They were powerful but predictable. Earth's military strategists began to see possibilities. Humanity did not have the Zephani's advanced technology. Human ships were slower, less powerful, built with simpler systems. But humans had something else. They had creativity born from centuries of competition and conflict. They had learned to win fights against stronger opponents by changing the rules of engagement. The decision was made at the highest levels of Earth's government. Humanity would accept the Zephani alliance. But humans would fight their own way, using their own methods. The Zephani were skeptical. They had seen too many species try to be clever against the Kryn. It never worked. The Kryn simply brought more ships, more weapons, more death. A different kind of preparation. Marcus remained on Epsilon 7 as construction began. The mining station was transformed into a joint human-Zephani research facility. Engineers from both species worked together, sharing knowledge, learning from each other. It was awkward at first. The Zephani were taller than humans, their skin covered in fine scales that changed color with their emotions. They breathed different air and ate different food. But they shared something important. They all wanted to survive. Sarah led the human research team. She spent months studying Kryn battle records, looking for patterns, finding weaknesses. What she discovered changed everything. The Kryn were not invincible. They were just very, very consistent. They followed the same strategies because those strategies always worked. But consistency meant predictability, and predictability meant vulnerability. The plan that emerged was risky and completely insane. It required perfect timing, absolute coordination, and a level of trust between species that had never existed before. When Sarah presented it to Earth's military command, half of them thought she was crazy. The other half thought she was brilliant. In the end, they approved it because they had no better options. 18 months passed. Across human space, shipyards worked day and night. New vessels took shape, designed not to match Kryn power but to exploit Kryn weaknesses. Training facilities pushed soldiers to their limits. Diplomatic channels stayed open with the Zephani, building a bond between two species that barely understood each other. And at the edge of known space, monitoring stations watched and waited. The Kryn were coming. Every day brought them closer to Earth. Every day gave humanity less time to prepare. But humans had never been good at accepting fate quietly. They had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that should have ended their species. They would survive this too, or they would go down fighting in a way the galaxy would never forget. The Kryn arrive. Detection and deployment. The warning came on a Tuesday morning, Earth Standard Time. Deep Space Monitoring Station Atlas 9 picked up massive fold space signatures at the edge of the solar system. The Kryn had arrived, and they had brought an armada. Admiral Jennifer Core received the report in her office on Mars Command. She had been expecting this moment for 18 months, but the reality still hit her like a physical blow. The numbers were staggering. Over 3,000 Kryn warships had emerged from fold space, each one bristling with weapons capable of destroying cities from orbit. Their formation was textbook Kryn strategy, a sphere of overwhelming force designed to crush any resistance. At the center of the formation sat their command ship, a vessel so large it had its own gravitational field. The Kryn had come to conquer, and they had brought enough firepower to sterilize Earth 10 times over. Jennifer activated the emergency protocols. Across human space, military units moved to their assigned positions. The plan they had spent 18 months developing was now being put into action. On Earth, billions of people looked up at the sky and wondered if they would survive the week. News channels showed the alien fleet approaching, their ships visible even to the naked eye as they drew closer. The Zephani position. The Zephani fleet arrived at almost the same moment, taking position near Jupiter. Their ships were fewer in number, only 800 vessels, but each one represented the collective's finest technology. Ambassador Thelvar contacted Mars Command, his scales showing the purple hue that indicated deep concern. He had seen the Kryn destroy his homeworld. He knew what humanity was facing. Jennifer met with Thelvar via holographic communication. The Zephani ambassador was direct. The Kryn would send a demand for surrender within hours. They always did. They would offer humanity a choice, submit to Kryn rule or face extinction. Every species that had refused was now dead or enslaved. The Zephani themselves had lost 12 colony worlds before learning that resistance was futile. He asked Jennifer if humanity understood what was about to happen. Jennifer's response was calm. She thanked Thelvar for his concern. She acknowledged the terrible odds humanity faced. But she also reminded him that humans had spent 18 months preparing for this moment. The Zephani had shared their knowledge. Humanity had used it well. She could not promise victory, but she could promise that the Kryn would learn something new today. The demand. The Kryn message arrived exactly as Thelvar predicted. It was broadcast on all frequencies, translated into every human language. The voice was cold and mechanical, stating facts rather than making threats. The Kryn Dominion claimed this solar system as their territory. All sentient species within the system would submit to Kryn authority immediately. Resistance would result in total extinction. Humanity had 1 hour to respond. The message showed images of conquered worlds. Cities reduced to rubble. Populations either dead or working as slaves in Kryn factories. The Kryn wanted humanity to understand that this was not a negotiation. It was a statement of inevitable fact. They had destroyed species far more advanced than humanity. They would do it again without hesitation or remorse. Earth's leaders gathered in emergency session. Presidents, prime ministers, and council members from every nation joined the discussion. The debate was brief. Surrender meant the end of human freedom, possibly forever. Fighting meant probable death for billions. But between slavery and death, humanity had always chosen to die free. The vote was unanimous. Jennifer was authorized to respond. She composed the message herself, keeping it simple and direct. Humanity rejected Kryn authority over this system. Earth was not for sale, not for conquest, not for any price. If the Kryn wanted this solar system, they would have to take it by force. And humanity would make them pay for every meter of space. The Kryn response. The Kryn commander was named Vorthak. He had conquered 47 star systems in his career. He had expected humanity's refusal. Every species refused at first. They all believed they could fight, could somehow survive against Kryn power. They were always wrong. He gave the order to advance. The Kryn fleet began moving toward Earth, weapons charging, shields at maximum. But something was different this time. The human fleet did not move to intercept. Instead, human ships scattered in every direction, breaking into small groups, running away from the approaching Kryn armada. Vorthak watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The humans were fleeing, as expected. The Kryn would hunt them down one by one, as they always did. Then the attacks began, but not from the directions Vorthak expected. Small human ships appeared from behind asteroids, fired short bursts of missiles, then disappeared before Kryn weapons could lock on. The missiles themselves were strange, too slow to be proper weapons, too scattered to be effective. The Kryn point defense systems destroyed most of them easily. Vorthak dismissed the attacks as desperate and poorly planned. The trap springs. What Vorthak did not realize was that those missiles were not meant to destroy his ships. They were meant to mark them. Each missile that got destroyed released a cloud of microscopic particles, coating Kryn vessels with a substance invisible to their sensors but perfectly visible to human tracking systems. Sarah's plan was working exactly as designed. The Zephani fleet suddenly surged forward, drawing Kryn attention. Vorthak redirected his forces to meet this new threat, confident that Zephani tactics were known and predictable. The two fleets clashed in the space between Mars and Jupiter, exchanging devastating volleys of energy weapons. Zephani shields held against the first assault, but Vorthak knew they would eventually fail. They always did. While the Kryn focused on the Zephani, human ships moved into position. They were not attacking. They were building something. Thousands of small human vessels worked in perfect coordination, deploying devices throughout the battlefield. The Kryn sensors registered them as simple communication relays, nothing threatening. Vorthak ignored them, a decision he would soon regret. Jennifer watched from Mars Command as the pieces came together. Every Kryn ship was now painted with tracking particles. Every section of the battlefield now contained human relay devices. The Zephani were performing their role perfectly, keeping Kryn attention focused away from human movements. Everything was ready. She gave the order that would change the course of the battle. Humanity's weapon. The relay devices activated simultaneously. They were not communication systems. They were quantum entanglement generators, a technology humanity had developed specifically for this battle. In an instant, they created a network of connected points in space, all linked at the quantum level. The Kryn had never seen anything like it because no other species had ever thought to build such a system. Through this network, humanity deployed its true weapon. Not missiles or energy beams, but something far simpler and far more devastating. Each marked Kryn ship suddenly found itself targeted by focused electromagnetic pulses, fired through the quantum network from 1,000 different directions at once. The pulses were precisely calibrated to overload Kryn shield generators, which all operated on the same frequency across their entire fleet. Vorthak watched in horror as his shields collapsed across the entire armada. Every ship, from the smallest fighter to his massive command vessel, was suddenly vulnerable. He tried to raise the shields again, but the human pulses kept coming, faster than Kryn systems could compensate. For the first time in his career, Vorthak felt something he had never experienced before. He felt fear. The Zephani capitalized immediately. Their weapons, previously blocked by Kryn shields, now found their marks. Kryn ships began taking damage, real damage, the kind that killed crews and destroyed systems. Vorthak ordered a retreat, but human ships had positioned themselves to cut off escape routes. The Kryn were trapped, surrounded by an enemy that had turned their own predictability against them. The cost of arrogance. Vorthak had 3,000 ships. Jennifer had less than 1,000. But numbers meant nothing when the enemy could not defend themselves. Human and Zephani forces pressed the attack, focusing on Kryn weapons systems, crippling their ability to fight back. The battle that Vorthak expected to win in hours stretched into days of desperate combat. Kryn casualties mounted. Hundreds of ships were destroyed or disabled. Vorthak's command vessel took hit after hit, its thick armor the only thing keeping it intact. He realized too late that he had made a fundamental mistake. He had assumed humanity would fight like every other species he had conquered. He had assumed they would meet Kryn power with their own power and lose. But humanity had never believed in fighting fair. They believed in winning. And they had studied Kryn tactics until they found the perfect counter. By marking Kryn ships and using quantum networks, humans had created a weapon system that bypassed every Kryn advantage. The shields that had protected them against every other enemy were useless against an attack that could appear anywhere instantly. The battle reached its conclusion on the fourth day. Vorthak's fleet was shattered, less than half his ships still operational, most of those badly damaged. He opened a channel to Mars Command, requesting terms of surrender. It was the first time in Kryn history that a conquest fleet had been forced to surrender. Jennifer accepted, but her terms were harsh. New rules. The Kryn would leave human space immediately. They would never return. Any Kryn ship detected within 100 light-years of Earth would be destroyed without warning. Damaged Kryn vessels could receive humanitarian aid from human medical teams, but only if they accepted inspection and disarmament. Vorthak agreed to everything. He had no other choice. As the broken Kryn fleet limped away, humanity and the Zephani shared their first true victory together. The celebration across Earth lasted for weeks. People danced in the streets, not just because they had survived, but because they had proven something important. Humanity was not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the most advanced. But they were creative, adaptable, and absolutely refusing to surrender. Thelvar contacted Jennifer after the battle. His scales showed colors she had never seen before, colors that meant joy and hope. The Zephani had fought the Kryn for generations and never won a major battle. Humanity had defeated them in 4 days. He wanted to know how Jennifer felt, leading the defense that saved her species. Jennifer was honest. She felt tired. She felt sad for all the lives lost on both sides. But mostly she felt grateful that Sarah's plan had worked. Humanity had not won through superior strength. They had won by thinking differently, by using the Kryn's own confidence against them. It was the most human victory possible, winning a fight they should have lost by refusing to fight the way the enemy expected. The war was not over. The Kryn dominion was vast, and Vorthak's defeat would not stop them permanently. But humanity had sent a message to the galaxy. They had shown that the Kryn could be beaten, that their centuries of conquest could be challenged. Other species would hear about this battle. Some would find hope. Some would find courage. And the Kryn would learn that humanity was not prey to be hunted. They were something new, something dangerous, something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever.